Welcome back, everybody, to another recap, review, rewind. Bring it back. What are we doing? We're talking about Loki Episode 5, whatever it's called. Wow.
Big spoiler time.
Huge spoiler time. Now, if you are worried about the audio quality, and you should be, it's because I'm recording in my car on a family holiday, and Mason is recording in front of his wall of Funko Pops.
James,
that I wish everybody could see.
You have been ejected from the family holiday. You've been demoted to car duty. Your wife's like, no, but maybe somebody will break into the car, James. So you should stay out there all night. And you're like, okay, but I better get some content in the meantime.
I'm sitting between two kids' seats in the back seat of my family car, which is how I always knew my life would end. But anyway, if you could leave a like on this video, that'd be great, because we're going through all things Loki this episode. I've made a list here of things we're going to cover, Mason. Do you mind?
No, please. I would love to.
Oh, great. Excellent.
For the first time ever, I'm a new man. I've turned over a new leaf, and I would like to listen to what you have to say for once.
Oh, terrific stuff. So we're going to talk about the Void, the variants on Loki, Throg, Aliath, Mobius, the return of what's going on the TVA, a huge amount of Easter eggs.
We're going to talk about Polybius. Yeah.
We are going to talk about Polybius. And, of course, I want to get into the end, the real villain of the series, because there's a whole lot of arrows pointing towards a particular person. But who knows? We'll find out, won't we?
That's exactly right.
Do you want to kick things off with what the deal with the Void is? So it's not like a particular timeline. It's just like a garbage dump for anybody or anything that
and it's
that
at the end of time. So if so the reason that the TVA can dump everything there is because supposedly it's at the end of time. So no matter what shenanigans people get up to, and let me tell you, they're getting up to a lot of shenanigans. It doesn't matter. Supposedly.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, we'll see, won't we?
Allegedly. Yeah, exactly. But no, I like that idea. Again, I think it's an idea they also did in Doctor Who, where they went to the end of time and all the stars were out or something. Is that a Doctor Who thing?
Look, at this point, you would be lucky to do anything in a time travel-based show that hasn't been done in Doctor Who already. We cannot rule out that there isn't an alligator wearing a crown at some point in one episode of a Doctor Who in the 60s, maybe. I don't know.
Has Doctor Who ever done self-cest, which a lot of people reported last week is what happens when you have relations with a variation on yourself. A lot of people also pointed out that it's actually fine because you're technically not related. You're variations on the same person. So I'm like, okay, I guess is that fine?
I think that's fine.
I mean, I still think you'd have weird
James,
kids.
We can sell that list to the government of all those people. So it's fine. We'll make a little extra on the side. So that is very good. I don't know. It's a good point. It's beyond the scope. And I don't think the doctor doesn't have relations with anybody, does he? Except maybe River Song?
No, David Tennant did. Him and Rose went and lived in... It doesn't matter. It's neither here nor there. Let's talk about variations on Loki, because we got a bunch. We get Kid Loki, who killed his version of Thor. He's also got wings on his helmet. I wonder whether he took that from Thor.
Yeah, probably great Easter egg spotting, James.
Thanks. I love Easter eggs and spotting them.
We also have Boastful Loki, who claims to have done a lot of stuff, but what he actually got up to remains to be seen. Yeah. I mean, we'll know when he gets his own spin-off series in, 2026 or something.
I would argue we're never going to see him again.
Whoa, bold call. All right.
We'll see. We got Alligator Loki, who, Mobius suspects is maybe not a Loki at all, but just an alligator wearing a hat.
It's true. But is capable of communicating and maybe lying, so that's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
A friend of mine, my friend Angus, he messaged me immediately after the previous episode, and he suggested Locodile, which I think is better.
I haven't heard Locodile. And
I said print the T-shirts, because you'll be a millionaire by Monday.
I mean, I think he's an alligator, but, I think that may halve your sales for your animal purists out there. But
what are you, a reptile expert now? Has your time...
No, I'm a man who lives in his car. That's who I am.
Is your time in the great outdoors currently made you an expert on all the reptiles slinking underneath you?
No, Mason. I guess it hasn't.
It's best not to question it.
We also got the Richard E. Grant old Loki, who's very much like from the comics. He's even got the green kind of magic that the original Loki kind of did a lot. A lot of green blasting. He escaped Thanos by doing the Millennium Falcon trick. I've actually got a comment here from Herbert, who says, I love how classic...
What's the Millennium Falcon trick? Running away?
Yeah, exactly. Got a comment here from Herbert who says, I love how classic Loki is based off the fan theories of him faking his death and floating in space after Thanos blew up their ship. So yeah, I wasn't familiar with that fan theory, but somebody must have been. to put it in this. Were you surprised that President Loki, who has one hand, it turns out, at the end of the day, was a different Loki?
Yes, I was.
Because that surprised me. Yeah.
But I mean, it makes sense. I mean, not all of these parallel universes are going to have an all new, all different Loki.
No, that's true.
Some of them, some timelines are just going to get lazy. Yeah.
That's true.
Well, that's a good. That's a good fun fake out as well. I mean, obviously they're going to have to put some of the the fun visual stuff in the trailers.
Yeah.
So why not throw us a little curveball?
Why not put the funnest thing of all? Speaking of fun,
yes,
a giant Marvel cloud. We haven't seen one in a hot minute, Mason. I know you're a big fan of Galactus.
Yeah.
How did you feel about this giant purple cloud?
Loved it. Great, good stuff. This one makes an effort to have even the slightest bit of definition. Like sometimes it has a face, sometimes it has
abs.
Arms and legs, abs. Yeah, definitely. And so that's better than we got. That's better than your Galactuses, your Parallaxes.
Yeah.
No,
fair enough.
Animated cloud supervillain visual effects they've really improved over the years, I think.
I agree. So it consumes matter and energy, and I think it's worth noting that in the comics, Aliath is linked to Kang. It's not like a guard dog, but they kind of control regions of the universe, and they are tied together, which kind of leads to a particular theory, which we've all been talking about for months on end at this point, but which we'll get into at the end.
That Kang is in that little castle, yeah.
Yeah, the Kang's in the castle.
Yeah.
He's the Kang of the castle, as they say.
King in the castle.
So Mobius is back. It does also, like in hindsight, and a few people pointed this out, when you get kind of zapped with the zappy stick, it does look a bit like the sling ring effect from Doctor Strange, right? There's that spark trailing off.
But I mean, you also get that effect when you put the wrong cable connections on a car battery, like you put them the wrong way around. So am I being teleported to another dimension when I try and jumpstart my car? Is that what's happening? I think Sparks.
Maybe.
I think Sparks is Sparks. To be honest with you,
Sparks is Sparks.
I think people are maybe seeing a connection. Yeah. Although I mean, we are getting a multiverse of madness soon enough. So maybe that's going to be the defining. The sorcerers of this dimension can pass through space with that effect. So maybe they can pass through dimensions with it too. Who's to say, James?
I'm not to say. I'm not saying anything. I've never said anything. I just want to bring up as well, and I wanted to ask you, what do you think's more romantic, the relationship that's developed between Mobius and Loki? They get a bit of a hug, and that's good, or Sylvie and Loki. And speaking of, Collins pointed out that, Collins, by the way, who edits these in a very quick turnaround.
Not just your mate. That's why you keep mentioning him. He's not just your mate. He's the guy who edits these videos.
He's everybody's mate, because he's getting these done.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyways, so he says Loki is a frost giant, right? So he's just pretending to be cold.
Oh, okay. Is that in the game? Do you think? Do you think that's in the pickup artist manual? Pretend to be cold, even if you were born of frost giant lineage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, nice.
So we got a little bit of the TVA as well. B-15 is alive. Renslayer appears to not really know what's going on or willfully ignorant.
We wondered about that last week. We weren't sure whether the revelation that the Timekeepers were androids, was that surprising to her? Did she know all along? But it seems to be, based on this episode, that she didn't know, but she's made the decision between the last episode and now that she would rather an orderly universe, at least for now, than for it to fall into chaos, and so she would rather people not know and Sylvie and Loki to be stopped rather than them to get at the Timekeepers.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think there was ever really a spaceship that can get to the end of time or anything like that? Or do you think that whole thing was a fake?
Oh,
are we going to get a time spaceship? Is what I'm saying.
You're saying is this Chekhov's time spaceship?
Yeah. That's what
you're saying.
Yeah.
You're saying they ripped this directly out of a Chekhov play because
that's right.
Wow, I guess they can do that. Disney owns everything at this point. I don't know, but here's the thing, though. I think did Miss Minutes initially make that play? She was like, "Oh, well, maybe we could use the time spaceship."
Yeah.
Do we think Miss Minutes is in on this more than she claims? Like, she seems to be just like, "Oh, I'm just here to provide records," but
yeah, there's been a lot of talk, and we've got a fair few comments talking about how the clock's behind it. The clock's doing all of it, and I think there's a fair chance that the clock will be behind it, but I think somebody would have made the clock.
Sure.
And even if we don't see this person, maybe we open up the doors to the castle and it's just a big clock. And it's like, hey, I'm the real clock. I'm a clock.
Wow.
Whoa.
I'm Miss Minutes' dad, Barry Minutes. I was behind this all along, but I had to give my daughter a job. So that's even worse than actually marking up the timeline is actually just nepotism. That's actually worse.
I agree.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think she is probably. I think Miss Minutes definitely knows more than she's letting on, based on this episode.
Yeah.
And at the end, when her last conversation with Renslayer, she was just like, "Oh, yep, I'm getting those files," but she seemed to be.
I'll have a look.
Yeah, she seemed to be stalling for some reason. So we'll see, won't we?
Yeah.
One would hope so.
She should be able to get files straight away, you know what I mean? It shouldn't be a problem getting files.
Right? She's a clock.
What kind of interface is that? Yeah, she's a clock, exactly. A clock.
Yeah.
Do you want to run through some Easter eggs? Are there any of yours that you spotted in particular? And then I'll cross them off my list, and then we'll credit them to you.
Obviously in the Loki gang's Loki cave, their man cave, if you will, they had a lot of, they had some... They had some delicious-looking boxed wine, for starters.
Oh, boy, did they.
But they did have...
Was that Roxen boxed wine?
It was Roxen brand boxed wine, yeah.
Yeah.
A Roxen box, so that's pretty terrific. But behind classic Loki was the logo for Polybius, the long-rumoured game, arcade game that was supposedly set up, in the 80s or the 90s or whenever you hear the story, that was being used, by the government to interface with people's minds and create some sort of MK Ultra super soldiers or what have you. The stories are all over the place. There's a great video by Ahoy on YouTube all about that.
I love them, yeah.
Polybius, the game that doesn't exist, so people should check that out after they finish this video.
Of course.
And leave a like.
And after they've left a like, yeah.
Yes. So that was my fave. What do you got?
Well, I was going to say, do you think that's what people really focused on? Do you think that's the one that they were like, people were like, oh my God, Polybius, that's the one.
Well, I did.
Like, forget Frog Thor.
I did. I've tuned everything else out. So, Frog Thor. Yeah. There was a big...
Throg.
There was one just out there, just more than any other episode. I think there was some stuff just in here, just chuck it in so the fans...
Yeah, totally.
So the fans will point and go, that's the thing from the... For example, Thanos' helicopter from that terrible comic book we read one time, where Thanos...
Yeah, we did a video on it, yeah.
Was terrorizing a city in his helicopter with coloured Thanos yellow with his name written down the spine. So...
And then he was arrested, do you remember, by the regular police.
By regular police, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention Throg. That was one of the leaks that we mentioned a while back.
Yeah.
Throg has a sliver of Mjolnir. That's where his powers come from.
Yeah.
But in this, he's actually trying to get a full-size Mjolnir, which is buried in the dirt. It's kind of terrifying that frog is stuck, buried in a jar.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to suffocate, actually. I think he's going to suffocate before he gets to that hammer, so...
Yeah, absolutely.
He's doomed.
I got a few others here, though. So we see the Avengers Tower up top. I mentioned that it was the one from Avengers 2012, but it's an alternate timeline one that says Qeng Enterprises. So from the comics, that organization picked it up after the events of some Ultron stuff, and it's also an evil organization, which is also linked to Kang, which we'll talk about in a minute. We saw the Sphinx with a nose. We saw Ronan's big old ship. We saw... a Halley carrier, but specifically Halley Carrier 42. Collins helped me out with a bunch of these, by the way. That's a Hydra one from the Winter Soldier.
One of the ones that was going to destroy everybody in the world.
There's a giant yellow jacket head. Now, he disappeared into nothing, so maybe it's him? I don't know. He just kind of got mushed up.
Yeah, he was turned to gristle, I'm pretty sure. But, all right, maybe he ended up here. Maybe a version of him ended up here. Cool, why not?
I saw that somebody mentioned that they spotted the Sanctum Sanctorum window in the opening. That ship that we see, the USS Eldridge, that was a World War II ship that was rumoured to have cloaking capabilities and could turn invisible, but it was disproven. It wasn't a real thing, but it's a nice little nod. Another one worth mentioning is...
James, it's just decloaked behind you.
No, that's just...
The ship, it's behind you. Yeah, that's right in the car park.
No, that's a baby seat.
Oh, okay, right.
You're mistaken. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing is, did you see the Living Tribunal statue?
Yes.
That was buried, like a giant head? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
He's like Marvel's equivalent of the Spectre. He's like a big time power guy that we've not seen yet. So is that an Easter egg, or is that gonna be, is that a portent of things to come?
Just throw it out there and see if anybody cares.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, there is. I often wonder about the first few phases of Marvel, how much was determined by the first few movies, and just throwing out little Easter eggs and Infinity Stones and gauntlets and things, and just seeing what people reacted to, and just what gave the biggest buzz on the internet, and saying, well, that's So what I'm thinking, James, is
I'm listening.
Phase 5 Polybius movie.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just a guy playing it. Just a single shot of a man playing it. It's not a very good game. It's a
just
bad
going
game.
mad.
Yeah. I mean, not
That's
that
what I've
mad.
heard. Also, not real.
He's getting a bit irritated because the game isn't very good, and then he leaves. And then a man shows up and checks some data.
I've seen worse movies.
The man's Nick Fury.
Yeah. David Hasselhoff version? Because it's
David
alternate
Hasselhoff.
reality, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, please. So just quickly on the Living Tribunal, I did some digging to find out if there's any Kang connection. There isn't, but in terms of affiliation and relationships, relatives include the one above all, who's the creator, and marital status, single. So,
right.
for all you ladies out there, or men, or anybody who's interested.
He's got 3 mouths, so use that information however you will.
But he's completely fucking insufferable also, so you need to bear that in mind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So before we wrap things up, I do want to talk about who's behind it all. Now, we mentioned Miss Minutes. Mm-hmm. She's I think definitely knows more than what she's letting on, I feel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She's got a terrible poker face for an AI of a clock or whatever she is.
And it's weird that nobody is like, hey, you're very sus, actually, Miss Minutes. Like, every time I ask you for something, you're like,
give me a minute?
I'll just have to ask my dad, Barry Minutes, who's not Kang, by the way. No,
not Kang. Well, speaking of, though, Kang is still my number one pick, and there's a few other things that I want to talk about that lead into that. So the Sphinx and the Pyramid could be a nod to Ramatut, who is, of course, Nathaniel Richards, who, of course, is the CEO of Qeng Enterprises, who, of course, is also Kang. Or a version of.
Oh, I didn't know the Qeng Enterprises, but I'm aware that, it's a time thing. So before or after or while he was Kang, he was also Immortus and Ramatut and various other characters. He's taken various guises over the infinite span of time and space. So that's okay. That's a little clue. I like that clue. Okay. Very good.
What about this one? I still haven't thrown it completely out, but a Loki, like the Loki of all Lokis. Do you know what I mean?
Could be.
The biggest Loki.
Yeah.
Basically Loki who's big, he's jacked.
He's big. The really big one we saw, the hologram one that had real big biceps.
Yeah, that one, sure, why not?
I've come to rule all of time and space because of my big biceps. You don't even get it.
And last of all, and I think this is a long shot, but what if it's Mobius? Because as Pen and Paper pointed out in a comment to us, if we've learned anything from the previous Marvel series, is that there's not going to be some new character introduced as the villain. It will be somebody we already know. So that's not my number one choice, but it wouldn't surprise me entirely if they went, it was Mobius. He was actually a big muscular Loki.
Yeah, exactly.
Surprise.
It is you. It is you. You are the ones who will say, wow, over these biceps. Look, I'm not sure. Look, it's an interesting theory. Let us absolutely throw it out there and chew it up. But I think because Mobius did give people the option to leave at the end, like he did say, you want a piece of this leaving kind of thing. You'd think if he were the bad guy, ultimately he wouldn't want more people knowing the truth getting out there, unless of course, he was going to tempad them into an active volcano or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we'll find out next week, I guess, yeah.
We'll find out next week. But yeah, I'm still leaning towards Kang, or like a nod towards Kang at the very least. But we'll see. Anyways, like we say every week, guess what? You can get these early, just the audio edition at bigsandwich.co. As soon as the episode goes up, we pretty much record and we get them out there, thanks to Collings. Or you can just wait for the video version. But speaking of bigsandwich.co, which is like our Patreon tier, we've got movie commentaries. We do bonus podcasts. Also, our podcast, The Weekly Planet, where we talk movies and comics and TV shows. That goes out a full day early on Sunday as opposed to the Monday. And speaking of, this upcoming episode is going to be on... Do you remember, Mason? Are you excited?
Black Widow.
It's a big Marvel movie.
Marvel movie, that's right.
You remember seeing big Marvel movies, don't you?
That's a big Marvel movie. But also, I mean, if you like the time-bending, reality-shattering antics classics of Loki, sign up to Big Sandwich because our most recent commentary is on the movie Crank. The Jason Statham movie where he runs around a lot and has sex in public. And
we will not apologise for that either. I apologise to my wife who walked in at one point when we were recording, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
We had to be like, this is our job. I don't know. How did we come to this? I don't know.
In some ways, this is your fault, Claire, because you contribute to this. Yes. But yeah, anyways, thank you very much for watching or listening. And thank you to Collings, of course, for the edit. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next week or sooner at other videos.
Grab that gem, folks. We will see you next time.
Goodbye.